Hello, welcome to the Talking City podcast coming to you from the Manchester Evening News. My name's Joe Bray, joined by Simon Bajkowski in Paris because City are in Champions League action this week at PSG. We'll get on to that. But before that, City, I don't want to say we're back to their best because I know that's a phrase that Pep Guardiola doesn't like, but they were closer to that because they went down to Ipswich and after a little bit of a rocky start in terms of some counter-attacks from Ipswich and Liam Delap looked good, then City put the foot on the gas and just blew Ipswich away and they could make changes and it felt a lot more comfortable than we've been used to in the last 2 or 3 months. 6-0 in the end, biggest win of the season. At the game I remember thinking I need to work out when the last away win of this size was, and I completely forgot. So biggest away win in a long time. But it felt like it was just things are clicking a little bit more, and Guardiola felt a little bit happier afterwards, and he was saying, "Yeah, the players are starting to believe again," which it's all a bit more positive after that, and especially it was needed after the Brentford game.
Yeah, not back to the best, but back to a recognisable City side, which they were at Brentford, but they then just kind of threw it away in the last few minutes. So yeah, you have to take in the quality of the opposition, but it was a very positive performance, a very positive result, and I think this is the most positive City are starting a week since October. Because two decent performances, one very good result, and it's starting to look more like City again.
I think that's what Guardiola was saying. He was saying, Kevin De Bruyne's back to or getting closer to his exceptional best. You got Phil Foden scoring 2 goals every game. You had Doku against I can't remember the games, but you had Savinho in the games where he's looking really good, and against Leicester and West Ham, and he's scoring and assisting. And then the challenge is laid to Grealish, but suddenly Doku comes back and he's taken that challenge instead, and he's scoring and assisting, and we'll get on to Doku, but he played very, very well, especially in that first half. And you've suddenly got a lot of players contributing again. And Erling Haaland, it took until the 5th goal, but he was always going to get on the score sheet in a game like that. And the only shock was that he hadn't got on the score sheet before it was 5-0. And going forward, they just looked so much more clinical. And a lot of it came because they targeted the Ipswich right, City's left. It was Doku played that ball so many times to the inside run of Kevin De Bruyne, the cut across. 2 of the goals were identical for Phil Foden. It felt simple, but because City worked that and they were ruthless in targeting that, but they'd also worked it out and were clinical in the same way, and they haven't been in previous games. So I think they deserve credit for making it look so ruthless, and especially because it was easy, but Ipswich did start well and looked like they were going to make it a proper end-to-end game with loads of transitions, and Delap was a sort of player who could smash one in out of nowhere, and they could defend a lead, and suddenly it gets nervy. But they took the game away from Ipswich really, really quickly, which is obviously something they've not done, and especially in light of throwing a 2-goal lead away. It was that 3rd goal before half-time that was really, really key.
Yeah, and the Doku performance was so good because he got into loads of similar positions when he played against United in the league, and every time the ball was never there. Whereas it was just nice to see everyone doing what they do best, kind of thing. And it was quite interesting because we spoke to Kevin De Bruyne after the game. He sort of said, these last few games, it felt, like you've learned how to be yourselves again. And he sort of made the point that it's only now that everyone's starting to sort of play back in the normal positions. He was like, we've got Núñez at right back, but you can have one out of position with everyone else in position. But when you've got 4 or 5 people doing roles they don't normally do, it stands out and it's not good. And we've not really thought about that, but everyone seemed to think that it was Gundogan's best performance since he came back. And it's he didn't play as a 6. He played as a player that he's done for ages. Like Bernardo Silva's done about 8 different roles since he came back. Whereas, Foden coming in off the right inside like he did all last season, to win all the individual awards and win the league for City. It just felt like things clicked, and I can't say I've noticed kind of too many square holes in round pegs in the last few months, but it's felt like things have jammed recently, and then now they're suddenly back in motion again, and there's no kind of friction in the machine.
Yeah, I suppose it's sort of, if you've got players just doing different roles, or even like Gundogan, for example, is looking more backwards than forwards, and Foden will probably have to adapt because he's maybe got to do a bit more defending, and likewise De Bruyne, and sometimes you've got Bernardo on the wing, and there's so much movement in terms of who's playing where as well in different games. If you've got a bit of consistency, all those players know where the other player will be. Doku didn't even have to look, and he knew De Bruyne would have his head down and be making that run. And I think Foden said they've been working on that sort of move where Doku is the one who plays the pre-assist, if you like, to De Bruyne, and he makes the late run in the box. And if De Bruyne knows that he's just got to wait for the run, I think Guardiola said that he just got to engage the goalkeeper and then wait for Foden, and Foden will be there. That's the goal City have scored so many times. Sounded like Pep there, but it is like they know where each other are going to be, and for players like De Bruyne and Foden and Haaland and all those players who played together so often, it's good. And I mean, you reminded me, we've been banging this drum for so long, and I'd completely forgotten at the time. But when Doku sets up Haaland, that's his first assist for Haaland, and Doku's actually putting balls into the box, and we've said it so many times, all he's got to do is find Haaland, and his entire game becomes so much better for City. And that's what he did. He waited, he played the right ball, and Haaland wasn't gonna miss that chance. And I think Guardiola said they struggle for consistency with him. I think they were talking with injuries and fitness rather than output, but you can probably say it is output at the same time. But when Guardiola's challenging Jack Grealish to match Savinho's goals and assists, Doku has done that. And he ended with a goal and assist at Ipswich, but he had a hand in the first 5 goals, and I think that will be really, really pleasing for Guardiola as well.
Yeah, I think so. And it was a simple goal for Haaland. Doku put it on a plate for Haaland. Like, you don't need to overcomplicate these things. It's football looks a very simple game when it's played well, when everyone does what they're used to doing, and it looks more simple, sort of the higher quality of play you've got, really. So when City play well, it looks really simple, and like you say, they just tore Godfrey apart on that right hand side, De Bruyne and Doku, and combining with Foden and Haaland and everyone else. So it was very, Doku is that kind of thing where Doku did really well against Salford in the FA Cup, having done really well against Forest in the league, but then he played against United and nothing worked. Seems like he did okay against Everton, but not amazing, and Savinho kind of overtook him, and then played well against Leicester and West Ham. Doku did well against Salford, so then it's like, right, go out and do it again. And he has now, and because when Savinho sort of came to the party, having not scored for ages, it was sort of like, well, he's walking into this team because no one else is challenging him. Whereas now you've got Foden, Savinho, Doku, Bernardo for those kind of wide positions. And you've kind of got, 4 players for 2 spots where a few weeks ago you had 1. So Doku has put himself into the picture with a bit of quality and a bit of consistency.
The obvious player missing there is Jack Grealish, who came on at 5 or 6-0 and didn't do a lot. And you can point to McAtee, who comes on and scores a goal. And this is what Guardiola wants, is that the players respond to other players doing well. And I'll read you what he said about Doku. He said, "I would say the best player in the last recent games was Savinho. Today, Doku played there because his training was good, and he played really good against Salford. He's got incredible quality to dribble. I love it when he dribbles, but after the decision making is soft or not precise enough." And then he was saying against Ipswich, his decision making was brilliant, and he's pleased for him, and that's why he played. So he's basically said, he wasn't playing well enough to start, and then he put his head down in training and played well against Salford when he got his chance, and has got the chance in the league and taken it. And there was no mention of Grealish in that press conference afterwards because he wasn't the story, but he'll be listening to that again. That's now 2 wingers who've been sent a challenge from the manager and answered it, and scoring lots of goals. And I was going through all the players, and Foden's got 5 goals and 2 assists in 4 games. De Bruyne's got 5 assists. Doku's got 3 goals and 3 assists in 3 games, not to mention the 3 goals in the first half where he's involved. Savinho's got a goal and 4 assists in 4 games. Grealish needs to react to that because he's not going to play. He's not going to play when he's got competition like that. And all of those players are contributing a goal or 2 every game, and that is the level Grealish has to get to, even if that's not his game. But he can do what Doku did in the first half because that is his game, is setting up the assister. But it's just not been happening really, has it? And I don't want to use Doku playing well and Foden and that to turn it on Grealish because he didn't play and he didn't do much. But that is also part of where he is at the moment.
It is undeniably part of it. You know, he's not a player for predominantly goals and assists, but if you look at his best run in the City team, which was the January to April of 2023 in the treble season, it was him or Mahrez were coming up with a goal or an assist every game to win City the game and pull them through. Like, it's what separates the greatest players from the extremely good ones. Like Bernardo Silva is an extremely good player. He goes up a level when he contributes to goals. And even, you know, De Bruyne is the same and things like that. So it does kind of put a spotlight on Grealish, but, you know, Doku has shown that good performances in training earn you your chance, and then you can use that opportunity on the pitch. You know, if Grealish were to produce because you turned to me at half time, didn't you? And you said Doku's had a hand in all 3 goals, but he's not got a goal or assist. And it's like, yeah, that is a really good performance. The goals and assists help. They help to sort of cement what your eyes have seen. And when you're making a case that someone has had a really good game, then that helps. You know, I could say Jack Grealish was amazing at Crystal Palace last season when City won and when they needed to win. But he didn't get a goal or assist. And the stat that comes out from 2024 is Jack Grealish hasn't scored a goal in 2024. And maybe that's unfair to him, but football is measured in goals and assists. And, you know, if you are playing as well as you can, then you should be involved in goals and assists because you've got Erling Haaland there, you've got Kevin De Bruyne there, you've got Phil Foden there. That should come naturally. And, you know, Doku, having had a hand in the first 3, then went and scored the 4th and then assisted the 5th. And he didn't do anything different. It just happened. So I think that's it. But I think also, you know, Guardiola's been banging this drum for ages. He's got a great squad. It's a squad that's been ruined by injuries this season, but he wants his players back, and his players are coming back. And so, you know, they've signed 2 young players and Marmoush is walking through the door. But before any new players have come into the team, City look like a different prospect than they have done for the last few months, because the players that he's relied on for the last 8 years are coming good again.
Well, that's literally what he's been saying, isn't it? It's give me back the players and we'll be better and we'll be fine. And suddenly those players are doing all right and playing a bit more frequently. And yeah, the fixture list coming up is going to be a bit more difficult, but you'd prefer to go into that on the back of a 6-0 win and even putting 8 past a League Two side in the cup. It's just that confidence. And the last 6 games, albeit with a couple of draws, look a lot better than the previous 13 or whatever it was. A nice link there to Kusanov and Reis, or Reis, as I was told it was pronounced today, and I'm almost certainly going to get that wrong for his entire City career. Marmoush is going to get added to that group as well, in the very informed and prolific group of attacking players. He can play across that front line if needed, next to Haaland. I mean, Guardiola said very clearly when Haaland signed his new contract, we're not going to sign any new strikers, and whoever comes in has to accept that they're number 2. So they might be spending 60 odd million on Marmoush, but he will be in the same position as Julian Alvarez was, and Gabriel Jesus didn't play with Haaland, but he left because of the same dynamic, and that is going to be an interesting one. But he's also someone who's had a hand in 30 goals this season, so can you really afford to leave him out too much? You've got a lot of players now suddenly out. It feels out of nowhere who are scoring lots of goals and assisting. And if Marmoush is going to come into a side, you'd probably want him to come into this one where they're in form and linking well and coming back to form. But that's again another person that Grealish has got to displace in the team, and it's going to be, I think, an interesting one to watch to see where Marmoush fits in and who maybe is sort of knocked out of place as a result. But the two deals we do know about that have been completed are Kusanov and Reis. Sai, anything you can tell us about that? Because we've known about these players, we've spoken about them. They've come for a lot of money, 63 million combined. Are they going to play too much? Are they going to be given time? We'll get on to the fact that City have had a bit of a weird day with the defenders. They've still, as much as they've got these attackers coming back, they've still got a lot of issues in defence, and these two players potentially could be thrown in at the deep end because City might not have another choice.
Yeah, and that's it. I think, nobody's expecting either player to come in and come into the team in the way that Ruben Dias did when he signed from Benfica. He came in, he had one training session, and then he played 50 games in a row because he was ready for that, and there was nobody else who was ready to sort of live with that competition. Both of these guys that have come in are signings for the future. Reis is like a Hugo Viana signing. The Palmeiras president has basically admitted it. So it's a signing for the future by a sporting director who's not even officially started yet at the club. That's how future it is. However, they are two guys. I mean, Kusanov's been playing in Ligue 1, so they will be in the squad and they will be there and they will be trying to get into the first team. And, they might not be ahead of John Stones in the pecking order when John Stones is fit. John Stones hasn't been fit for most of this season. So they're ahead of John Stones now because they're available. They're ahead of anyone who isn't available. So it will mean that they can play there rather than playing like Nathan Ake, Manu Akanji and Kyle Walker at 30% like City did at Bournemouth. It just means they've got options for now as well as these long-term prospects for the future.
It was interesting. I was at training earlier and they sort of both walked out pretty sheepishly, as you would on a young player on your first day at training at a massive new club, and it's just completely different for both of them, really. It must be such a whirlwind to arrive and have your big unveiling at a club like City and then come out and you're training with Foden and Haaland and De Bruyne. I think Reis he said he'd had a chat with Savinho before he arrived, and those two were sort of chatting in close. But Kusanov he's this massive young lad, but he just sort of was looking around of like, who do I speak to here? And I think Foden sort of took him a little bit, and it was quite sort of heartwarming to see. And everyone's been there on the first day at a club, but it's probably one you don't want in front of the cameras because you want to just get on with it. And but no, they were getting involved with the rondos and stuff. But yeah, I just felt a little bit sorry for Kusanov because he just looked a little bit sort of looking around, not really sure of what happened. But that is where you want your players like Foden, who's been there forever, and all the captains and stuff to help you. I'm sure he will get that, but obviously he can't play against. Neither of those two players can play against PSG because they've not been registered, and you can't register new signs until the league phase is done. We'll go to a break in a second. We don't really know who's going to be there at PSG because City were very weird, I want to say, in training with who was there and who wasn't. We can probably assume Kyle Walker won't be there. City is still sort of waiting for an offer from Milan. I think it was put to Pep at Ipswich that Ibrahimovic had been talking up because he's involved with Milan, and Pep just said, yeah, Kyle can play anywhere if if Zlatan said that, that's what Zlatan said. But it's quite a cold, cool, brutal.
Known fan of Zlatan, Pep Guardiola.
Yeah. It probably wasn't the best way to put it to him because of the Zlatan links, but that's an ongoing situation, isn't it? With Walker, and there's rumours of medicals and flights, but it feels like they need a solution, don't they, by the end of this window? Because like with other clubs, and I'm thinking Rashford at United, you've got your club captain wanting to leave. There's got to be a line drawn under it one way or another, I think, by the end of the window.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think they need him to leave necessarily. They just need it resolving, because I don't think they will have any issue with reintegrating Walker if he doesn't get the move. This City dressing room is a dressing room of adults, and they, brush themselves down, and they're not sort of hurt or don't let things like that get in the way. So I don't think they have an issue reintegrating Walker, but I don't think he will be kind of under consideration for selection until his future is resolved. And it does look like he's going to go to Milan for the rest of the season. But then, if that's a loan, then he's back at City in summer. So it's not going to be a complete sort of, scorched earth policy by anyone. So I think it's probably likely to happen. And because, as well, you had sort of for a time talk of AC Milan can only sign one non-EU player, and will he sign Rashford or Walker? Like, Walker seems to have won that race. So it's just whether they can get it over the line. But I think they will. But I would be reluctant to say Walker's played his last game? Don't think so, but I wouldn't, I'd expect him to come back in summer.
It feels like the Cancelo situation when he was loaned out. That felt a bit more sort of acrimonious, if you like, but this one, he wants to leave. It's probably in everyone's best interest, but he's still got a fairly long contract where he's got 18 months left, and it's that summer decision, if it is only a loan, is going to be quite a difficult one. But like you say, they've welcomed back players who've asked to leave in the past, like Bernardo and Edison and other players like that. And I just do feel that the longer he's left out of these squads, and if he's training or he's not, then you've then got to make a decision when he comes back of how he comes back, and fitness must be an issue and everything like that. So I personally think he should just go, but it feels like it is what leaning towards it anyway, and that's what he wants, and City are moving on without him. We'll go to break there, come back with a little report from the strange training session that I alluded to, and then we'll try and make sense of what happens when you have a training session with no defenders. Hello there, welcome to a very, very strange Manchester City training session. I'll show you, if you can, some goalkeeper training there in the background. City training ahead of the Paris Saint-Germain trip, and they have no defenders in the session. It seems like a deliberate ploy from City to put people off the scent while the opening 15 minutes are open to the media. It's just got us very, very confused here. The two new signings are here, Abdulkadir Kusanov and Vitor Reis. £63 million combined. Rice was, I'm struggling with the pronunciation, as you can tell. Reis was, he was confirmed just before this training session was confirmed. Kusanov yesterday. They're both here. They're getting used to the session. They came out with Savinho, who has spoken to Reis before he arrived. There's no Kyle Walker, as he sort of continues to angle for the move away. AC Milan are linked. But is that because of a move, or is it because Guardiola has no defenders? And it's just strange. There were doubts over Nathan Ake. We don't know about John Stones. He's been playing Mateus Nunes at right back. None of those players are here. Are they waiting just for the cameras to disappear? Does that mean there's another injury? Manu Akanji came off at Ipswich, and we thought that was rotation, but could he have an issue? It just raises a lot more questions. And normally we get a travelling squad who go to Paris or go to an away game in the Champions League. I'm now thinking, are we not going to get that because they want to keep the cards as close to the chest as possible? It's a very confusing training session. We'll have more on that on the Manchester Evening News and on the podcast. I believe we're getting kicked out of this session right now, so who knows? Maybe those players will come out of the gates behind me and join the session. But yeah, an odd one. 2 new faces, but a lot of missing players that add a lot more questions than answers. Back to you guys in the podcast studio. Yeah, so welcome back to the Talking City podcast. I think I ended that video by saying cut to the guys back in the podcast, and then I've picked it up myself. So you can tell the seamless transitions there. But yeah, we went to training, and you wait for ages in the cold and the rain, and slowly players come out, and they normally do crossbar challenges, and you're struggling to see them because they're at the other end of the pitch, and you wait for everyone to come out. Pep wanders out himself. And then they start the warm-ups, and you get 15 minutes to get any film you want, or just look at what's happening, and then you're kicked out before they do any tactical work. And what happened today was they did a couple of crossbar challenges, and half the squad were out, and then they started the warm-ups, and the clock started, and we're working out who's not there because clearly a lot of players aren't there, and no available defender was training in front of the cameras. And you've got Nathan Ake who missed this trip to Ipswich, and John Stones hasn't been fit. Manu Akanji went off at Ipswich, but that looked like it was a rotational thing. And Pep said he was already looking forward to the Paris game when City went 4 or 5 up, and he was able to make those changes. So we didn't think anything of that Akanji one. But now I'm looking back and thinking, is there a problem there? There was no Doku, Nunes, or McAtee, and Nunes has been playing right back. McAtee sort of played in defence in the past, when I think we remembered that on the way back from Ipswich that his debut was at left back, but he's definitely attacker. I think there was a lot of players missing, but to have no defenders in your training session, it felt very odd, and sort of Sir Alex Ferguson tactic, if you like. I've got no doubt whoever was available jogged out as soon as the cameras left, and they went through a full training session. But I've not seen that level of mind games from Pep or City before. And I'm now wondering why they've done that, because it's clearly to keep something away. But what is it? What does it mean, Si?
Yeah, I don't know. It don't really make sense. City have never really been a club for that. Like Arteta's the master of it at Arsenal. Of where is Bukayo Saka at any one point? That kind of thing. And City just haven't really done that in the past. So it's slightly confusing, and also kind of defeats the whole point of holding an open training session. I know sort of they do it because they have to rather than because they would love to, but it still kind of seems a bit daft. If I've never really seen it like that either, where just like half the team isn't there. So yes, I'm sure we will get a travelling squad in a few hours, and I'm sure it will have most, if not all, of the players who weren't on there. But yeah, just a bit surreal. Did it feel?
Yeah, it felt like. I mean, obviously we were missing something because all the players were there, but it was just like, oh, it started. Is that it? And it's I've not seen it before. It was obviously a deliberate thing. It could be as simple as they want all the players who are involved in the defensive work to have a meeting or do whatever. But you're looking at the injuries. They had to rush Ruben Dias forward on his return, and he started at Ipswich. And you would have assumed that Akanji and Dias would start at centre back, especially if Ake's out and Stones doesn't seem to be ready. Then you've got Guardiola at left back, and maybe Lewis or Nunes again. You're led to think that if they're doing this, is one of those other players not available? Because if you go out to training and you've only got Ruben Dias, for example, or you've only got Manu Akanji, PSG are going to look and think, right, well, great, they're only going to travel to Paris with one defender, and it feels like they're trying to hold back something as long as possible, or just give someone extra time. It's all hypothetical. We don't know, but yeah, like you say, they've always been quite transparent. If a player's not there, they're not there. If a player's injured, Pep will come out and say, yeah, he's injured for 3 weeks or 2 months, or he doesn't try and always do one of those what you see other managers do, which is hold it off until team news. You always get him saying, "Oh, we'll train today and we'll see," but if a player is injured, he will often tell us. He doesn't try to hide it, so that's why it feels surreal and a bit different and a bit strange.
Yeah, very strange.
But it also, like, Doku wasn't there, and is that something he went off as well? I believe at Ipswich, and I'm questioning everything now, and I'm sure everyone will go to Paris and there'll be nothing. But it was. You go along to these training sessions, and you know, especially for what we're looking for, is just who's there. Is there any injuries? I was thinking, is Kyle Walker going to be there or not? Are the two new lads going to be there? What can I spot from that? And wasn't quite expecting no defenders to be there as well. But no, it was an interesting one. You've got a press conference with Pep later to see if he has anything to say about that, or he could almost certainly deflect that as well. You're expecting anything from sort of the pre-match before Paris? I would have said who would you start, but we can't really go into that now, can we? Because we don't know who's going to travel.
No, well, I would like to think that the travelling squad, when it is announced, will clear up a lot of issues.
I'm wondering if they don't, if they've got something to hide in training, and I don't want to go down all conspiracy theory, but if there is something that they don't want the cameras to see, are they going to wait and just they don't have to publish a travelling squad?
No. I mean, again, I would just be surprised if they didn't. But if they don't publish one, then it's just like, Pep, why didn't 10 of your players train? And it's on him to say, oh, well, these players did. So I think it'll just have to be like that, really. I mean, I was expecting him to sort of be asked about Nathan Ake anyway, with his absence, because it wasn't really the time after a 6-0, was it, to say, how long is Nathan Ake out for? But he was obviously missed at Ipswich. So, yeah, it's just going to be... There's just confusion right now, isn't there? We're both being like, what on earth has happened this morning? Because
I know people come to us for answers, but it's one of them where it's a different situation that we've not had before.
Yeah, and it's kind of like the season, right, where we've said, where just as we sort of go, oh yeah, well, they're looking more like their normal selves, it's like, well, now there's 10 less of them than there were. See what they can do with that. So we will have to see how that goes. But yeah, I would like to think that it's cleared up sort of relatively swiftly.
It's probably in the best interest too as well, unless are we going to see Edison play outfield, for example, or I reckon he could do a job at centre back and help them out. It's a big game in Paris because they're only a point ahead of the cut-off for making that playoff round in the Champions League. I mean, they could go into the game knowing that a win will help them out. I think we were looking if Stuttgart lose tonight to Slovan Bratislava, who have lost every game, and City know that their level, a win would see them qualify. So they're close to getting through to that, but they've still not got that playoff round secure. PSG are a point behind, and they're in the final spot before the playoff round. They need to do something in their last 2 games. You would think the top 8 are beyond City. It's a game where if they win, they're very much on course. But if they don't, then they've got a lot of work to do in that final game.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like a big shootout. It probably isn't, because all they need to do is win the final game. But nobody wants to be leaving it till match day 8 of 8 to be needing a win to qualify for the latter rounds. City would really love a win here, and then they can say, well, top 8 may yet be sort of within reach. Then we looked, it was like 3 points between 3rd and 19th. So, you know, it really is tight. And City are, 23rd at the minute or something like that.
22nd.
You know, the goal is just qualify, but they would love to leave Paris with a big win, being able to say, yeah, this game against Club Brugge at the end of the month, we can push for top 8, but we know we're guaranteed a playoff spot and we can attack this game rather than sort of be a little bit jittery about it.
I mean, what a win tomorrow does for City is put them 4 points ahead of PSG, who are in 25th, and they just need to finish 24th. And there's only one other team that could catch them. So it's a win basically puts them through, doesn't it? And that is the main objective. And if they can then keep that faint hope of a top 8 alive, then great. But I mean, there are a lot of teams, and I mean, Real Madrid are 20th, PSG 25th. There's some big teams who have struggled in this league phase, and yeah, I think this is the time where any doubts that we had about the new format is probably going to show itself to be quite exciting, just as UEFA insisted it always would be. And yeah, it's this is probably, when the draw was made, the toughest one, you would say, of the lot, just because it was the most difficult away one. I know Inter at home was difficult. They made hard work of some of the other ones. Pep still, he mentioned the Feyenoord game, and I feel like he thinks that's one of the worst of the lot of that losing run. And he had a sort of a caveat for the Sporting Lisbon one, but it was the Feyenoord one that he really thinks about. And I mean, it's, for example, if they'd held on to that, they would have been 15th maybe on 10 points and only 3 points behind the top 8, and then you're in a much better position for that with 2 games to go. So it will be interesting with 2 sort of struggling clubs who you would have maybe pictured to be part of that top 8 might not even be part of the top 24. Again, I would have asked you for a prediction side, but we're not sure about the team. Can they get a win? Will they get a win?
They can get a win. What I would also say, to defend myself, because I was very down on this new Champions League format, is maybe City aren't the best team to do it, but like, we're in match day 7, it's PSG v City, and we're still saying, well, City don't really need to get a win. Don't matter if they lose, because they can just win game 8 out of 8 and they go through. So I feel like there will be a lot of sort of interest, excitement as to sort of who finishes in the top 8 and who finishes 9 to 16. And I'm sure there will be lots of 9 to 24. I'm not necessarily sure the sort of it should be decided like that. Like, the guarantee of a last 16 place versus a playoff. The margins could be like 1 goal, and that is really tough over 8 games. Which, the Premier League can be even tougher because teams can win on goal difference over 38 games. But it still feels a bit gimmicky for me. But to your more serious point, I think it's been a positive week, and providing half the team aren't missing, I think they will be confident, because PSG are kind of under more pressure. It's their big chance, home game, to try and sort of come back into this team and also into this league. And also, like, they've put in good performances against big teams, and then they faded badly in the final 30 minutes. So they need to kind of show that they can put in a performance over 90 minutes. And, as ever, the Champions League is enormous for PSG because they can win the French league with their eyes closed. So it's kind of all or nothing for them, which should play into City's hands, I would say.
Yeah, they've got a really weird set of results in the Champions League, obviously because they're 25th, but lost to Bayern and Atletico, and I think they lost to Arsenal. But they played 6, 7 points, scored 6, conceded 6, which leads you to a low-scoring game. And they've not been losing by a lot, but they've also not been scoring a lot either.
Is it 1 win?
I think so. Well, they've got 7 points. Let me just scroll back through the thing. They lost to PSG, lost to Atletico, drew with so they've got some draws. So yeah, they've beaten Girona. I think that's it. Yeah.
Yeah, but that Girona win was scratchy as anything. It was like a 90th minute fumble from the Girona goalkeeper. So like they can say they've been unlucky in some of the games they've played, but they've also been very lucky to get the one win that they did.
Yeah, they're beating Salzburg. Oh, I think they've won 2. They're beating Salzburg as well. So, but Salzburg and Girona are 2 clubs who can't qualify. So you would have expected them to win those games anyway. Yeah, on the basis of that, I might say a 2-1 City team, but I can't be confident unless I know they've got any defenders. And I repeat that training session has thrown me right off. So I'm going to need to tune into your fine work at the press conference to see what Pep's explanation is for that. If there is at all, take me out of this rabbit hole of why he's done what he's done.
And we also get Big Earl at the press conference as well. Erling Haaland speaking after his 10-year deal. So it should be good. All the reason to tune in, or read things retrospectively.
Yeah, well, that's a perfect way to end it. You've done my job for me. I'm off to climb out of this rabbit hole and hopefully learn the true meaning. I mean, if the mind games haven't worked on PSG, they definitely worked on me in terms of that training session. We'll give you everything you need to know from the press conference. Size obviously in Paris for the game tomorrow night as well, and we'll be back before the Chelsea game at the weekend to work out what happened at PSG, where City stand in the Champions League. Omar Marmoush could have signed, probably will have signed. We would expect that to happen soon. And we'll be back at some point in the week to discuss all of that. Give us a like, a follow, subscribe, a comment wherever you're watching or listening to us. And we'll be back soon. Thanks for joining us.